Fine. I'll do it myself.
Hello Internet, and welcome to another TDX game theory. This one's been a long time coming. After 3 years since it was first announced, Nightmare Mode is finally here, and I'll be here to unpack everything from the lore, the secrets, and the truth behind what really happened. This video will be separated into 22 different segments, and I suggest you watch everything to understand the full story. And with that, let's begin with the first segment. Okay, so quickly, let's discuss all the current factions in TDX. We have the GDA, Dr. Xenon's army, Calamity, the Awakened, the Relics, Void's army, Frosty's army, Forge Industries, and some honorable mentions would be the yellow symbol, but they have yet to make an appearance or is cancelled, and the Slime army, but they weren't necessarily canon to the lore. So yeah, as of right now, we have 8 current factions. Now to talk about the main mode itself. At the start of the cutscene, we can see that the GDA has their very own spacecraft while trying to find Dr. Xenon's own spaceship. They couldn't find her easily because according to the advisor, she took out her own satellite communications. John was also taken away because advisor was pissed off that John lost her coordinates.
Hey, I did nothing, man! We're after Dr. Xenon! It's real, Dr. Axel!
Her last signal was detected leaving the solar system, and they decide to follow her despite the chance that it could be a diversion. At Dr. Xenon's side, there's a neat detail where we can see the same hammer that she used to build the parts of Eradicator Mark II Plus on her table. Another thing to note is that the GDA is inspecting Xenon's ship on their monitor, while Xenon is doing the exact same thing as well, inspecting the GDA ship on her screen. According to the Excientist, the GDA has taken the bait and that they couldn't catch up to her at all because they have a really outdated ship. She also has a random cat picture that she drew that says "hang in there" for some reason. I wonder what that could mean. Anyways, now she plans to go to Earth and deploy her entire fleet of Eradicators, while the advisor is distracted and far away in interstellar space, which leads to the events of Nightmare Mode. Now on Earth, Dr. Xenon starts to send out her entire fleet of enemies, as well as deploying drop pods and enemies from the sky to start her global invasion as her spaceship hovers over Earth. We are then tasked to take on the enemies, and this time we have a new narrator character named General Leah, who has a quite similar outfit to the GDA commander skin. And no, she's not related to Dr. Xenon at all, just because they look a bit similar. According to Leah, the GDA has also set up various base defenses, and that Dr. Xenon has made new tech to further harness the power of the Calamity Crystals. They got this intel through the satellites near Xenon's moon base, meaning that Xenon may have several different operations on different planets. The rest of her dialogue is just talking about other details like Mark IV wiping out the GDA's naval division, Xenon having abandoned factories, the Europe division being wiped by Mark 1C, which we did learn in Endless Mode, no more copies of Apex Predator existing, with the last one being the one we fought in Fortress Snowlin, and then she drops a bombshell when it's stated that they don't know much about Calamity's forces, and then she mentions Dr. Mallory's name, and then says how she'd rather not talk about what happened to her, meaning that her sacrifice could have been public knowledge within the GDA, or a secret only the top ranks were aware of. Throughout Nightmare Mode, we've seen a bunch of new Xenon creations and I'll only be talking about the important ones. First off, we have this spawn deployer enemy that sets up a pad which teleports enemies in, meaning that Dr. Xenon does have teleportation technology, which is also proven in the secret cutscene where she teleported into the base. The GDA also has the same teleportation technology as Ronald can teleport away, and the stations that we go to the various nightmare maps are teleportation based as well. Another enemy that makes an appearance is the Multiplier X, which Xenon randomly sends out in case we skip the wave early, which was kind of a waste. Another important enemy is the Dispenser, which is an enemy that gives shields to all the enemies around it, and while he may look like just a regular enemy, he actually has a GDA outfit on, meaning that this enemy could have also been a tower that would have given shield just like the shield tower. An example of this is that there was an enemy that existed called the Grenadier that existed way before the actual Grenadier tower came out, so this means that the Dispenser could also be a new tower. Then, the last few important enemies that we see are the X2s, who are basically built-in transformers that turn into power-ups that attack our towers in the air, and then we have Alpha Predator, where it seems that Dr. Xenon has finally solved the core overheating issue according to Leah, as Alpha Predator doesn't die after his first phase and doesn't explode on his second phase. That's all for the important enemies, and I'm not gonna discuss the other enemies from Ultra Nightmare mode as the mode itself is not canon except for the beginning cutscene. Now, Xenon's greatest creation yet, the Emperor, is finally here to take us down. The Emperor also has a large amount of Calamity energy powering him, as Leah states 2 waves before wave 50. Keep in mind that this isn't just regular Calamity energy but the enhanced version, because as said earlier according to Leah, Xenon was able to further harness the power of the Calamity crystals. Not only that, but the Emperor also contains some of Void's energy, as he's able to corrupt towers. Because of all the energy inside the Emperor, he's also able to stop time/slow down time, which makes him the highest level threat that the GDA has gone against so far. And if that wasn't enough, the Emperor is also able to teleport with the teleportation technology that I talked about earlier. After a long battle, we defeat the Emperor, and he has this to say.
My defeat was of no benefit to the GDA. In the end, my purpose wasn't to end you, only to weaken you. For them.
Now, a big question that sits in my head is why was he trying to weaken us and not kill us? Sure, the Calamity forces could just finish us off, but if Dr. Xenon had the opportunity, why wouldn't she just defeat us right then and there? Well, I think that she was trying to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. You see, in one of the older lore drops, it shows how Dr. Xenon still wants to save Dr. Mallory after she sacrificed her to the Calamity. So I think that in our weakened state, she thinks that we would be defeated but would also weaken the Calamity at the same time, which would give her the opportunity to third party in order to somehow save Mallory with some unknown method while the Calamity faction is weakened. Hence why her plan was to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Back on topic, but the reason why the Emperor chooses to explode is because, back to the dialogue, when Apex Predator exploded his Calamity powered core on wave 70 of Endless mode, it attracted the Calamity to appear at wave 80, which means Dr. Xenon programmed the Emperor to explode on his own to attract a huge wave of Calamity enemies, which I'll discuss later on. In Nightmare mode, Forge Industries played a substantial role in supporting both sides. And if you still don't know who they are, I have a dedicated theory video on them. But for a quick recap, Forge Industries is a company who supplies and creates weapons, parts, machines, etc. for both the GDA and Dr. Xenon, essentially playing both sides in war for profit. For our defenses, Forge Industries were responsible for helping manufacture a lot of things like the War Machine, as shown by their triangle logo on the tower, and even the gun mech. For Xenon's army, they helped make a lot of the enemies that we see in Nightmare mode, like the X2 Troopers and X2 Fighters or Avatar M's, as indicated by their logo. In the end, they will continue to be a weapon supplier, and speaking of Forge Industries, that leads us to our next topic. In the lobby near the Nightmare map selection, you can find this paper on this table, which is a document from Forge Industries called Project Aegis, which states that during a war in North America, an Emperor-class Eradicator was found, destroyed, and taken by the GDA to be researched. This creation of Dr. Xenon was special because it didn't have a host unlike the other Eradicators that needed a human or zombie piloting it. The GDA and Forge Industries ended up reverse engineering the artificial intelligence that the Emperor-class Eradicator uses, which Dr. Xenon programmed. The last line says it is within the interest of the GDA and humanity in weaponizing this artificial intelligence and combating any forces foreign, domestic, or interstellar. So, what is this Eradicator exactly? Well, it is an early prototype of Dr. Xenon's Emperor, where in the Emperor we got to see a Nightmare was its final version. As I said, the GDA is now going to weaponize its AI for combat, and I think that they're going to apply the AI of this Eradicator onto the gun mech, because of the intense scale of what it's capable of doing. And I think that gun was created for the main purpose of combating these foreign forces. A big question looming under everyone's head is that was Dr. Xenon actually piloting the Emperor? Was she inside the suit? Well, I actually asked John about this and here's what he said.
Oh, by the way, was Dr. Xenon in the Emperor?
You can figure it out for yourself if you listen closely to the sound. I put in one sound and that makes it quite clear.
Now, I've yet to find out what John was talking about as I haven't got the sound effects yet, but let's look at the evidence we have. Obviously, in the Emperor's theme, Final Eradication, Xenon says she'll do it herself.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
And even throughout the song, you can hear her laugh and speak. My first theory on this is that she was in the suit controlling the Emperor's every move, but then teleported away at the last second, as we know that she has teleportation tech. My second theory is that she wasn't in the Emperor, and the Emperor was just a smart sentient AI that knew how to attack on its own without a host, because as we know from Project Aegis, the early version of the Emperor used artificial intelligence for combat without having a host, hence why it could speak because it's all robotized with Dr. Xenon's programmed AI. My third theory is that she was not in the suit, but was remotely controlling the Emperor from her ship. Although it's uncertain for now, I think that it's most plausible that Dr. Xenon was controlling the Emperor or had a role in controlling its attacks in some sort of way. We got 4 new towers in the Nightmare update, that being Refractor, War Machine, Shield Tower, and Behemoth. John actually listed a bit of lore for these towers, and they are the following. Refractor, combining the Void's and Calamity's energy together, it formed a new powerful energy to be used, which also aligns with the Emperor as he also has a combined energy of Void and Calamity. For War Machine, nothing much is stated. For Behemoth, it was rumored to be deployed during the Awakened invasion, which is supported by John's dialogue in Halloween Part 2, where he mentions how the Behemoths easily took down the Twitching Vials. And lastly, for the Shield Tower, it was developed after the invasion in the Europe Division, which was also mentioned by the advisor after Eradicator Mark 1C wiped out one of the GDA bases in the Europe Division. Each of the 5 Nightmare maps each have their small bits of lore here and there. First off, we have Castellan Reach, which is reminiscent of an ancient theme/structure, where this map was old and broken down as you can find ancient statues, and even a fossil of a dragon's head. This structure was definitely significant in the past, as even the name Castellan comes from the word castellum, which is Latin for fort or castle. This place was then raided by the Awakened as seen from the Calamity Orb and structure design, reminiscent of part 1 of the Halloween event, and it seems like they too praise Dr. Mallory as the Awakened is a cult after all. One important thing to note is that the GDA also claimed this place in the past, as noted from these banners where they had a different bird logo when compared to their current modern one. This means that there was actually an older GDA, one that was probably around the 10th to 14th centuries when castles were still prominent. Another thing to note is that this GDA logo is actually a reference to the Command & Conquer GDI logo, which John is a huge fan of. Next, for Supremacy Prime, there's not much lore here besides that it's a giant city guarded by the GDA. Same goes for the map Pacifica Ruins, as it's just a place where a battlefield went on with a GDA facility. For Gun Facility, I already talked a bit about it earlier, but essentially, the GDA and Forge Industries made this giant mech in order to combat any future foreign forces. This place is kept hidden from the world as it's being built in the middle of the ocean where it's heavily guarded. In this area, we can see that there's a document over here. The subject of this document talks about a status report for Project Gun, about its delays in development and incidents. To sum it up, a bit of radiation seeped from the mech, and there was an instability in the pilot interface, and because of this, the testing of Gun has been suspended indefinitely, until the problems have been resolved. Again, in the map, there are also 2 more documents. one for testing gun, and one for a company called Milicorp. I'll be saving Milicorp for a different segment. This other gun document, or as we know it now as the GDA Ultimate Neutralizer, talks about how the process of gun was made, through its design, fabrications, and tests made on it. Phase 1 talks about the design and structure. Phase 2 talks about the prototype parts and inspections. And Phase 3 talks about the testing of the actual gun itself. I don't have a clue about who the crossed out names are, but it's safe to say that the budget for gun has to be at least an estimate of 1 sextillion based on the width of the crossed out numbers. I wonder if we'll ever get to see this mech get deployed in the battlefield someday. For the last map Finality, I'll save that for another segment later in the video. We finally have our second currency in the game called crystals. And John stated that these crystals are actually the ones from what was talked about in Frosty's invasion during Xmas Part 1 and 2, where Dr. Xenon wanted to get a hand of these anti-calamity crystals as stated by the advisor, and she was actually able to get one piece from a lore drop. Back to this other document from the gun map that I talked about earlier, it highlights the company called Milicorp, and this document reads as follows. Forge Industries, Acquisition of Milicorp Incorporated Agreement. Mr. and Mrs. Redacted. All assets belonging to the organization Milicorp are to be reallocated to Forge Industries and its subsidiaries. Contractual breaches between Forge and Global Defense Agency have resulted in the absolvement of Milicorp, of which includes the sale and marketing of interstellar and foreign tech to private groups and cults, and association with Redacted. Basically, this entire document means that Forge Industries is acquiring Milicorp, essentially absorbing the company and taking everything they own. But why exactly? Well, based on this line, this means that there was some kind of broken contract involving Forge Industries and the Global Defense Agency. And this broken contract was because Milicorp was doing some devious things, like selling or marketing advanced interstellar/alien/foreign technology to dangerous groups or cults. And this could explain how the Awakened had some of Xenon's technology like the corrupted predators, because Milicorp sold the parts to the Awakened faction illegally. The whole document is scribbled with "don't trust it" because even acquiring Milicorp in the first place is a bad idea, as they're full of bad actors. One last thing to note is that over here it says Global Defense Agency, but the GDA's name is supposed to be the Global Defense Army, so maybe there was a name change in the past. On the map Finality, there is this weird text that you're unable to read, and in order to read it, you need the Calamity Decryptor, which you can find in the lobby in this room called the Linguistics Research. This room appears to be covered wall to wall in Calamity writing, similarly to what we see in Finality. This was a special room for Dr. Xenon where she went crazy trying to decrypt and figure out the language of the Calamity. I actually tried to decrypt it myself by finding any similar fonts that matched, but there were no exact ones, and this is most likely a custom font created by the devs to emphasize that Calamity has their very own language. There are also chains hung up on the ceiling which suggest that GDA employees were experimented on in this room, or maybe even sacrificed like Dr. Mallory, as you can see one of the workers' outfits on the floor with a cracked mask. By the way, you may think that this is oil from part 3 of the Halloween event, but this could just be a random GDA employee as they all wear the same standard issued uniform. With the Calamity Decryptor, you can now read the Calamity text which says, "Thus the General shall address his armies. Heed to the voices of the Hellborn, for their teachings shall bring us prosperity and salvation. Alas, the Duchess sought to overpower all, to commune with us. For the devotion of thine servant purest of heart, we shall grant thee what thou seek. So we ask of thee, with whom lies all guilt, with whom lies some, and with whom lies none." Now, what does this exactly mean? Well, this text is talking about the 4 main entities that lead the Calamity faction: the General, the Hellborn, the Duchess, and the Servant. This means that we still have 3 more to take down, as we have already taken down the Servant, aka Dr. Mallory. One interesting thing to note is that the General is actually wearing a Void Star crown, which is interesting as he could also tie to Void as he always wore a Void Star. The second to the last line talks about a servant purest of heart, which is Dr. Mallory, and they will grant whoever shall seek the sacrifice, which is Dr. Xenon. The final line talks about 3 characters. The one who lies all guilt is Dr. Xenon, as she was the one who sacrificed Mallory in the first place and was guilty of it. The one who has some guilt in them is most likely the advisor, as believe it or not, he played a role in Dr. Mallory's sacrifice, but I'll get to that later. And the one without guilt is Mallory, as she is pure and had no idea of what was to come. Now, this text can also be depicted differently instead of labeling the four as calamity entities. Each one can actually represent some of our main characters. The General represents the Advisor, as he is the one in lead of the GDA army. The Hellborn is the Calamity faction itself. The Duchess is Dr. Xenon, as she wants to overpower the GDA and the world. And lastly, the Servant is Dr. Mallory, as she is the one purest of heart. For the Finality map itself, it seems like this place is the Calamity dimension, where it is a place of many tombs and monuments where the Calamity scouts reside. Under the bridge, you can also find a stone crying Mallory, which represents how she felt betrayed and depressed for being trapped here. There are also these display cases which feature a skull, Mallory's scythe, and Eradicator heads, which could imply that the Calamity faction were observing the Eradicators and how they work, as later on they would use that to their advantage, as they would corrupt Eradicators to fight for them. Anyways, if you look up, you can even see several creepy faces on the ceiling which is hard to spot. Now, after lighting the pillars of the Duchess, Hellborn, General, and the Servant in that exact order, a message will appear that the feeling of impending doom washes over you. And then, after the Emperor attracts the Calamity faction with his Calamity energy explosion, all hell breaks loose. This wave features a bunch of new enemies that the Calamity faction throws at us, and I'll discuss some of the important ones. First off, we have some Halloween enemies, like this one called Brimstone with a pumpkin hat, and this one called the Calamity Reaper that looks a lot like Grim from Tower Battles, as he is also part of the Calamity faction because when he died, he also sinks back to hell just like Calamity. We also have question mark Endbringers, who appear to be claimed by the Calamity faction as they were originally from Void's faction, as we know that the Calamity faction is known for controlling other enemies of other factions, just like how they corrupted the relics to join their side. We also have the first new boss, which is the Dark Presence, who actually wears / is similar to the same Roblox hat called a Dark Presence. He has a specific HP amount of 1,446,965. And when you drop the 1 and convert it from hexadecimal to text, it spells out die. Then at long last, we finally face off against Dr. Mallory aka Nemesis with her final demon form. Now, the name Nemesis actually holds a significant meaning, wherein in ancient Greek mythology, Nemesis means goddess of vengeance and retribution. And wouldn't you know it, if we look back at part 3 of the Halloween event, the banners praising Dr. Mallory say Dea Vindicek, which is Latin for the goddess of vengeance. Now, the scythe that she wields is no ordinary scythe, but it's based from another Roblox item called the Skeleton Scythe, but it's just a bit modified and recolored. She also has a specific HP amount of 5,776,879. And if we drop the 5 and leave 776879 and decode it to hexadecimal, it spells out why. Meaning it's her asking why was she sacrificed? Why did this all have to happen? Nemesis also has an ability where she can summon a bunch of enemies, including 30 calamities. And if you're wondering why there's so many of them, it's because that they are just calamity scouts. Even the one we fought in Endless Mode was just a scout, as said by the Wretched during Halloween Part 4. After a long battle, we finally defeat Mallory, and this is what happens to her. She screams, and it seems like she's getting dragged back down to hell, or a way of saying that she will be a demon forever. But suddenly, she flies out of the abyss and is now free. We finally freed Mallory, and she doesn't have to suffer under the calamity anymore. But that begs the question, there are two meanings of being free. One is we ended her, which would mean we freed her from her suffering. Or two, she's freed as in she turned back into a normal human. Well, if you were to ask me, I'm not too sure at all if she either died or lived. But there's no way that her story just ends like that. I don't think it was a satisfying ending for Xenon, as they never made amends. Plus, we don't actually see her die, the screen just goes white and that's it. Maybe she's free but in a state of purgatory. And even if we don't know what really happened to her, I'd like to think that she finally found peace, somewhere beyond the calamity chaos. Maybe being free isn't about being alive or dead, but about finally being unbound. After beating the secret wave, we are greeted with a special cutscene. This cutscene takes place in a research facility where the calamity rocks are being examined, as seen here from a different angle of the room, along with prototype Eradicator suits. This is also the same place where the first ever lore drop pic was taken, and I'm pretty sure this lore drop was retconned as Xenon and Mallory aren't working for the GDA anymore in this pic, so I guess they just changed this part of the story in the timeline. Anyways, Xenon teleports into the room, visibly distressed or bothered by something in her mind, while Mallory also talks about Void's dimension, which sets up TDX X Tower Battles Part 2, where we will be going to Void's world. Xenon says that she got approval while activating the portal and they go inside. It's clear that Mallory has never seen the inside of this portal before, as she says that she's never been here before. We can also see that there's more Calamity writing on the walls, but obviously we can't decrypt it. Then Xenon says,
I just need one more.
And then the portal closes. We then get an altercation between Xenon and Mallory. And then, when Mallory mentions Advisor's name, that was the breaking point of Xenon and she pushes Mallory into the Calamity dimension, ultimately sacrificing her to them. Now, there's a lot of things to break down here, and let's start with what did she mean by I just need one more? Well, at first, I thought that one more means that she needs one more sacrifice, but that doesn't make any sense when Mallory says, don't we have enough as it is? We don't need any more. As that phrase wouldn't line up with sacrifices, and I doubt Mallory would let that happen. The real answer of what one more means is a Calamity Crystal, because as you know, the GDA does need their Calamity Crystals in order to power their golden towers as they run from Calamity energy. Now, I could be wrong and she is referring to sacrifices, but we don't have that much evidence towards what Xenon is talking about, so for now, it's either one more crystal or one more sacrifice. Xenon never wanted to sacrifice Mallory. When Xenon pushed Mallory, she held her hand, as if she didn't want to let go. She was even in tears even before she was about to kick her in. There are many possible reasons on why she sacrificed Mallory. First off, it could have been under her own ideals. She says on how she needs one more crystal, not we, not the GDA. She herself needs it, which would mean that she opened the portal without clearance, without anyone's permission. A second theory would be the advisor himself forced Xenon into sacrificing Mallory. But there's not much evidence to this, besides the fact that when Mallory mentioned advisor's name, that was the breaking point of Dr. Xenon to push her. But there is something John said about what happened during the day Dr. Xenon sacrificed Dr. Mallory.
I don't want to explain too much like of what occurred once she fell the because it's not just death. It's like a lot more, but it's gonna be like explained way later on, I guess. It's still like a lot to unravel. This is just like explaining the foundation, and even when Xenon teleports in, I mean, there's a lore to that as well. It's not just a random day she just decides to teleport. There's a reason for that.
Whatever this specific day may be, could have been the result of something that would have happened the previous day. And maybe, just maybe, someone else was sacrificed. Ever since Xmas 2024, Xenon mentions a quote-unquote him character.
I was naive. I could have saved him, you know?
And ever since we heard of it, we still don't know who this him character is, and how Xenon failed to save him. And looking back at it, I don't think that the person that Xenon is talking about is the advisor anymore, as she sees him as the villain, and it wouldn't really make sense for her to mention him during that event. Now, I believe that this character was another close associate of Xenon or maybe even Mallory and the advisor, but was also sacrificed. Xenon tried to save this person from their fate, but she failed. Hence why she says that she failed to save him. But we don't know anything about this character, so who could it be? Well, this may be a stretch, but this leads into the next segment. Under the elevator of the lobby, we are greeted with a brand new area which involves the GDA deployment bay and this mysterious door that we can't enter, called GDA 4590A Headquarters, Research Division, Fluorine 918.998. To the casual player or even myself, I just saw it as a naming convention for another one of the GDA research areas, until I saw the name, Fluorine. As some of you might know, in Dr. Xenon's name, Xenon actually stands for an element in the periodic table, which is element number 54, with an atomic mass of 131.294. If all of that sounds confusing to you, don't worry, you guys will learn it in science class soon enough. Anyways, another element present is element number 9, aka fluorine, with an atomic mass of 18.998, the exact same element number and mass number in the GDA Research Division headquarters. Now, I know you may think that the name Fluorine is just used to categorize the research division area, but seeing that Dr. Xenon is based on an element name, maybe Fluorine is also catered towards the name of a specific person, named Dr. Fluorine. And maybe this could be the him character that Dr. Xenon was talking about. I know this sounds like a stretch, but at the end of the day, it's just a small theory. The most recent lore drop that we have gotten is this image of Dr. Mallory, which explains a lot of things. All the enemies we see in this picture are the ones we see in the secret wave, like the gargoyles, weeping angels, hellstars, imps, and calamity reapers. We can also see the hellborn holding up Mallory's chains, which we have yet to face off against. And then we have Dr. Mallory. There's also this black aura that is seeping from her surroundings, which would eventually create the Mallory clones, or better known as the redacted enemy, further proving that they were just clones of Mallory all along. If you haven't already, go watch my Halloween theory as it explains that better. Anyways, this image explains that when Mallory was pushed into the Calamity's dimension, she didn't instantly convert into Nemesis or the Goddess of Vengeance, but she was chained there and tortured, eventually becoming corrupted over time. When the Secret Wave update was released, the title of the game was changed to have a bunny on it, but that left a lot of people confused because what does a bunny have to do with the Secret Wave? Well, if we look all the way back at an old image of Dr. Mallory, we can see that she likes bunnies, and maybe she even owned one at some point. Even in the TDX Discord, there's a sticker that shows Dr. Mallory as a bunny, and even one of the people who animated the Secret Wave cutscene states that Mallory always did like rabbits. Now, does this mean anything at all? Well, the only thing I can think of is that TDX takes a lot of inspiration from Doom, and the Doom guy did have a pet rabbit called Daisy, and it was killed by a demon, which was one of the main motivations that made Doom guy rip and tear all of hell. So maybe you can kind of see the parallels of the two stories here. In the Nightmare Mode update, we got a whopping 18 OSTs made by the talented TDX Composers, and I'll be talking about the lore for each of them. Each song was written for the different factions of the mode, some for the GDA, some for Xenon's army, and some for the Calamity faction. The songs listed for each faction are the following. For the GDA, we have Forward, The Last March, Heroes for a Reason, Seize the Battlefield, Fight for Freedom, and Defeat Isn't an Option. For Xenon's faction, we have Beast Like Me, which ties to Eradicator Mark II and that Xenon thinks too much of herself. I'll Give Up When I'm Dead, which for Xenon, she is stubborn and she won't stop at anything. Rust in Pieces, because that's what she wishes on the GDA. Driven Mad by Fear, as she's the one who truly understands the fear of Nemesis. And finally, for the Calamity faction, we have Her Looming Presence, which means Nemesis's presence becomes stronger as the Calamity language is studied and translated. Demise, which has the motif of Vindicta, who is the awakened subdivision of Calamity who also worship Nemesis. Drazgorth, which means This Death. And we have Athvek Dokai, which means I Was Fed to Flames. And lastly, we have Zarakai Razgorth, which means Goddess of Wrath/Calamity. This song in particular is special because it features special lyrics that we can't understand. This language that you can hear from the song is a special Calamity language / their dialect, and the Gijay even said so that it's their Calamity tongue. Anyways, finally, we also have these three main boss songs which obviously belong to these respective factions. For this part of the video, I did a very short Q&A with John, the owner of TDX, Fibagotchi, the voice actor for Mallory, and Robin, the voice actor for Xenon, and I tried asking them some questions about the lore. So, here you go. Oh wait, John, I have a question.
What?
Aaron Prevails, he uploaded like 2 vids, like Emperor voice lines. Are those canon?
Aaron Prevails. So that's the one I voiced for the song. Pretty sure you did it for fun. I'll be real. I don't think that's canon. I'm sure it's just fun. Like the only ones that are canon is like the Brecha and stuff like that. But I don't know about him because I haven't heard of that. So I'm gonna assume not for now because I haven't heard those lines. So I'm gonna say no.
Rogue Ordinary.
Yo, I was wondering if you guys could give us like any exclusive lore drops.
We actually wanted to. Okay, it's not really a lore drop, but we wanted to talk about something interesting about how Mallory. So we, as the voice actors, thankfully, we were given quite a bit of creative freedom with the characters. And before before we were working on the cutscene, we were, well, sort of say, writing Mallory, and John really wanted Mallory to have this
Annoying!
nasally, annoying, snorting voice. He really wanted Mallory to basically sound like,
Actually,
and
Dr. Xenon,
if it wasn't for us, Mallory would have sounded a lot different. I don't know, Fib, do you want to try?
oh, Dr. Xenon, oh my god, you're finally here. You're finally here. I have so many things to show you.
Fun fact, that's what she would have sounded like. But yeah, we pushed her to have a little more of a likable voice and personality.
Yeah, you're supposed to like her.
So yeah, huge thanks again for John, Fib, and Robin for answering my questions. And that leaves us with the last segment. And that wraps up the Nightmare Lore video. This has to be one of my longest and thoroughly researched videos yet, so please like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Again, huge props to the TDX team for making this update as amazing as it was. And thank you, fellow viewers, for watching this video, as it means a lot to me if you watch this till the end. And always remember, that's just a theory. A TDX game theory. Thanks for watching.